All right, crypto bros. I hate to say it, but I think we're cooked. Why do I think we're cooked? Let's look at the charts. I mean, there is some optimism later, but right now we look kind of cooked. We're at 96,800 right now. And that, my friends, is a lower low. Remember, when we came up from the first Trump tariff fiasco, we went up to about 111,000, which at that time was a new all-time high because before that we were at 109,000. But then we did actually dump to this low of about $98,000, right? And then we went back up all the way up to like 123, then 124, and eventually 126 in October. But we did have some dumps in between. Like for instance, in August, we went all the way down to 107,000. And then we went to, 108,000. And then we went to 104,000 in mid-October. But we never breached this $98,000 lower low. But now we've actually breached it. And at the time of this recording, it is past midnight. So we did actually close today at a lower low. Now, if we close the week below 98,000, that's final confirmation. But I think it's pretty good confirmation that we're cooked. In fact, I am about 75% sure of our cookedness. Now, that sucks because we haven't had the altcoin bull run, and it looks like we're not really going to get the altcoin bull run because alts are following Bitcoin down, down, down. Bitcoin dominance is not really increasing, but it's definitely not decreasing either. So right now, before we close above 98, I could say, hey, we're actually making a higher low. Especially on basically the 4 or 5 month timeline, I can no longer say that. Now, you can still say, hey, we still haven't dumped below $75,000, which is the low back in April after the tariff fiasco. But that was one, because of the tariff fiasco. And two, that's like a super, super dip low. Like if we go below 75, the path to 50 is very, very clear. Because if we dip below 75, we're definitely in a uber bear market. Right now, it's only a bear market. But if we dip below 75, we're in an uber bear market. But right now, because it's like a significantly long timeline of around almost 5 months, I can say that we are at a new 5-month low. And if you really look at it right now on the daily, we've had a death cross basically for 3 weeks now, but we are well, well below both the 50 and the 200 MA. If you look on the weekly, I think we just made a death cross right there. So all the indicators are pointing negative. So I don't really know, some of you want to buy the dip. I'm not really sure if I would buy the dip right now because the indicators are really, really bad. However, the government did actually just open back up, and the Fed governors, and this is the good part, are signaling maybe a 50 basis point cut. Now, we've already cut 50 basis points and didn't really do much, so I'm not really sure if an additional 50 will pump the market back up. But I do think it will actually help the market. That will bring interest rates down closer to 3%, and then you're at that inflection point where bonds don't look that attractive, and maybe risk assets like crypto look a ton more attractive. But I wouldn't actually bet my house on that because right now, I think people basically have a bad view of the economy. And when they have a bad view of the economy, they're not likely to buy risk assets like crypto. And plus, I do think a lot of the people that bought the spot, that would buy spot on alts, are actually in perps and leverage. So I'm not really sure how you get those people back into regular spot buying on alts. Might be a really, really difficult task. So would I short right now? No, I wouldn't short. But I wouldn't be buying any more altcoins or maybe even Bitcoin right now until we see it even out or until we get to 75,000, because we could actually dip right to 75,000. I mean, if you guys remember 4 years ago when we started dipping, we didn't stop dipping until we went from 69,000 all the way to 15,000, basically nonstop dipping for a whole year or less. So if you're looking at a good time to buy back in, if you assume that we're getting into the bear market, look at October of next year, because it usually takes us a year, maybe a year and 2 months to actually dip to the very bottom. And then in another year or two, we start going up again. But that's not very good news. And it's definitely not something that people want to hear. But right now, based on all the technicals and the fact that we just breached a lower 5-month low, I do think we're cooked. And if we go below 75,000, we are super cooked because I do not think that is the bottom line. I think it's possible to go to 60 or even 50. I'm not really sure what's going to hold the bottom line. There's really no indicator of what's going to hold the bottom line. My guess based on last time is basically around 40, 50K would be like the very lowest low. Now the ETFs and the institutional money might actually improve that because we didn't really get a huge burst up. So the burst down may not be as bad either, but altcoins are definitely going to suffer, even though some of the altcoins got ETFs. Solana and XRP basically have the best ETFs in terms of volume. Those two have about the same volume outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Nothing else even comes close because they just had two separate debut days, very close to each other. Solana got 57 million on its debut day, and XRP got about 58 million on its debut day. So they basically track each other. The demand for those ETFs is decently high, and the demand for those two ETFs is about the same. And you can see that on the Rex Osprey one for both Solana and XRP, and also on the 1033 one for Solana and XRP. So those two might actually be pretty good, along with Bitcoin and Ethereum, because they do have institutional buying. The other ETFs like Hbar only had 8 million, Litecoin had 1 million, so I'm not really sure how much of an effect that kind of small volume is actually going to have. I'm really hoping that these ETFs help. I'm really hoping that the 50 BPS cut actually helps, but it's really up in the air right now. And we just might be in a market where until the economy comes down, until people get more certain of the economy, until people get more optimistic about the economy, and God knows when that's going to be, we might just be thoroughly cooked. So yeah, I would definitely hang on to some dry powder. If you want a DCA, that is fine. But I think if we go, I probably wouldn't be really buying unless we get to 75K or at least 80K or so. And alts, I might just wait for several months, or unless we have a turnaround next year because Trump's guy cuts the interest rates back to zero. And then of course he's talking about a $2,000 stimulus. But even the $2,000 stimulus, I don't think would actually pump us up that much. It'll definitely give us a boost, but it won't be like 2021. And the reason is most of the money from the stimulus in 2021 didn't come from the actual stimulus. If you remember, there was these things called PPP loans that basically happened under both Biden and Trump. They were basically had no overviews, and anyone was able to get loans. The value of those loans far outweighed the value of individual stimuluses that people got. Because I only got $1,800 out of all the stimuluses during COVID. I know some people got a lot more, but that's because they had they have families, and maybe they don't make as much as I did back then or whatever. But I only got about $1,800 total for the stimulus. And so I'm looking to maybe get maybe $1,000, $2,000 from this stimulus, but a lot of people got tens of thousands, several thousands or tens of thousands of dollars from the PPP loans, and they didn't have to pay that back. How ridiculous was that? Justin Sun got a ton of PPP loans that he didn't have to pay back. I mean, Justin Sun and Tron. Now, he definitely should not have qualified the PPP loans, but they were so lax and lenient, and no one was actually watching them under either Trump or Biden, so that people were very easily take advantage of that. Marjorie Taylor Greene got a ton of money. Justin Sun got a lot of money. I think Charles Hutchinson got some money for Cardano. So that's not happening this time. The stimuluses are all that's actually happening this time. And the PPP loans were 80% of the money last time. So we're maybe getting 20% of that boost effect. So wouldn't really count on that either. Although the $2,000 stimulus will actually help. And I do think most of the people are going to use that $2,000 stimulus to basically pay bills rather than buy crypto. Because if you really think about it, I know some of you are in the chat are oh my God, $2,000, so much money. I'm bro, it's not that much money, man. It's $2,000. It's less than half a month's salary, more or less, depending on how much you make, obviously. But for most people, I'm going to guess it's under half a month's salary. Because, $4,000 a month is not a very high salary. And, even if it's $2,000 after tax, that means you basically got maybe, $2,700, $3,000 before tax. And even if you count $3,000 before tax, I mean, that's only $6,000 a month, which is not a super high salary. So a couple of weeks worth of salary for free. Maybe some people will take it into crypto. Other people like will just use it to pay bills. Not really any kind of like life-changing money. I swear some of you are like acting like he's giving us $500,000 each. He is totally not. And of course, there's going to be the blowback afterwards, where basically there's going to be massive inflation because he printed a bunch of money to give us a stimulus, and that's not going to be good. So that's going to be an uber bear market. But you might get that pump for like 30-40% before you get the uber bear market. So if you see that, make sure you sell on time. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.